Battle Shapers is another example of the roguelike FPS, and recently left early access and hit 1.0 at the end of 2024. And while the game has plenty of charm to it, despite all the running, jumping, dashing, and wall jumping, it does feel like it comes a bit short in a few spots. When the futuristic city of tomorrow, New Elysium, has been corrupted and taken over by robot masters, or shall I say overlords, it is up to a Schaefer Ada in order to come in and save the day for yet another in a roguelike adventure. With Battle Shapers here, the game definitely draws similarities and some like the feels and aesthetics of the Mega Man games. Fighting the robot overlords, the kind of very peppy music, and of course gaining their powers to then turn the tables on them. Our gameplay here is going to be again pure FPS roguelike action. Now if you've played any of the other ones that we've mentioned here, such as RoboQuest and Gunfire Reborn, Battle Shapers kind of sits between the two in terms of speed and movement. It's not as fast as RoboQuest, but it's certainly going to be quicker than playing Gunfire. How this one works is that you'll begin a run choosing from a different core. You'll unlock more cores as you beat the various bosses. Your cores are essentially your class and will determine which buffs you'll be able to acquire, what is going to be your special ability, as well as kind of like changing some other attributes around. The beginning core that you get access to is kind of more defensive in nature, allowing you to put up a reflex shield. Another core will grant you the ability to do long range punching, as well as double jumping, and many more. And since you can mix and match primary and secondary cores, the game gives you a lot more, I would say, viability or the means to fine tune your build, even more so than the other games that we mentioned. As you go through, the game features very much hard set weapons. This is not going to be like RoboQuest where the different attributes on weapon will wildly change its impact. You're not going to find a hit scan rocket launcher in this game, unfortunately. And this does lead to a few of the issues I have with Battle Shapers that we'll come back to in a few minutes. But on every weapon, you'll get access or you'll find different mods. And instead of kind of mixing and matching mods onto weapons, you'll eventually gain the ability to take mods off of weapons and apply to the different slots on Ada. So this allows you to very much create very customized builds based on which mods you find and where you attach them to. And as per normal for the genre, it can lead to some very game-breaking effects. If you combine an elemental type of damage with a mod that gives you a greater chance of causing that, with another mod that increases the damage on it, with another mod that does even more synergies, and you of course get the picture. The roguelite and kind of run-based design of Battle Shapers comes in the form of unlocking new possible items that can show up and permanent upgrades. Similar to Mega Man, you'll be able to upgrade Ada's armor and kind of robotic powers by finding specific upgrades. This will in turn allow you to access more areas and find more ciphers, which is this game's version of unlockable perks and additional stuff that can show up. You'll use, once again, a persistent currency that you'll be able to then unlock these for future runs, and some of this stuff is very important. Beyond just being able to get more health and shield, you'll be able to unlock features such as being able to hack the upcoming floor in order to gain different perks, as well as being able to unlock greater features and powers on the various cores themselves. Now, over the course of a run, you'll choose where you're going to go to one of 3 different towers, and over the course of the game, the different robot overlords are going to be kind of randomly shuffled between the 3 when you start a new run. The further you play, or after each successful tower, the subsequent towers will gain additional perks which will affect what enemies will show up, what traps / retributions bosses will throw at you, and generally will make things harder for you. Now, as you beat the different enemies, you'll be able to again get more of the upgrades and The runs themselves, I would say, is a little bit on the lengthier side for the genre, especially when I compare this to something like RoboQuest, which most of the runs, once you get good at the game, are maybe 30 minutes, give or take. This easily takes, I would say, an hour and a half to maybe more, at least until you start getting access to enough upgrades and persistent matter that will let you kind of speed through some of the earlier stages. The general combat in this one is good. The game is built on you kind of finishing off enemies by knocking them out using Ada's Fist. When an enemy is about to die, there's a chance they'll get kind of like stun and flash pink, which is kind of your cue to go in and finish them off with a melee to regain shield. Now, there are mods and additional perks that can greater synergize off of this, such as when you knock out an enemy, they cause a mini explosion, you can punch enemies into other enemies, and so on and so forth. And it does give combat a really nice feel, and when the game is kind of running on all cylinders, when you're using your primary ability, your kind of special powers you can pick up, gun, and so on, there is a lot of fun of just running, bouncing, and just knocking everyone around in the arena. Once you beat the game for the first time, the quote-unquote true ending route begins, as you'll be able to raise the difficulty up with different modifiers that will affect how hard the game is. If you can beat that, you'll unlock the next tier and the next, and eventually you will hopefully be able to get to the root of the problem with New Elysium. There's a lot that I like about Battle Shapers, and if I was just playing this kind of in an echo chamber and not comparing to some of the other ones that we've seen, this would be a very solid entry. But there are some unfortunate limitations with Battle Shapers that does kind of hurt things long term. So one of the biggest factors is that the runs do not have enough mechanisms to make each one feel different. Because you are still exploring the same 3 tower types, fighting the same enemies and the same room arrangements, it lacks kind of the variety that we see from some of the other games. There aren't too many kind of wild modifiers or wild events that can happen in this game. You'll unlock more that can show up using the persistent upgrades, but after playing this game for about like 5 or 6 runs, I really started to notice a lot of the rooms repeating themselves, and a lot of the situations as well. While the additional kind of boss perks and the difficulty modifiers do mix things up and add challenge, this is one of those games where once you know, quote-unquote, the right way to play it, it's going to work every single time. And this is not helped by the weapons. The weapon variety is vast in this game, but it's very linear compared to some of the other ones that we've played. This is not the same, again, as RoboQuest, where weapons can get wildly different modifiers that can completely change the utility of it. Nor is this like Gunfire, where each individual weapon is just a very unique beast. And kind of pun intended, some of the weapons were actual monsters that you could shoot at enemies. In this one, the weapons fall into kind of preset archetypes. You have pistol types, you have SMGs, assault rifle, shotgun, etc. And instead of providing like a wide assortment of modifiers, instead the weapons will come with kind of like pre or default elements. So one of the pistols has the ability to charge up to shoot out a kind of like homing missile. The railgun can be charged up, and that's kind of where they're hoping the variety will work. But it's that situation where every version of that weapon operates the same exact way, even though you'll find kind of slightly different versions of them, such as maybe one has more ammo, maybe one has a little bit faster reload speed. It's not overall changing things in that respect. The only exception to this is that once you start going up the difficulty modifiers, you'll start finding quote-unquote hacked versions of weapons that do change things up, such as a shotgun that shoots out rockets instead of pellets. And that's a great feature, but it's one of those things where it's kind of too little too late. And I think that kind of takes me to like my major issue with Battle Shapers. Unlike the other roguelikes and roguelites that we've checked out, this game seems to take a very long time, at least a long time in terms of roguelite terms, to really kind of get going in terms of the upgrades. Since you only start with one primary core and it takes several plays before you start unlocking the ability to use the other cores, it means you're kind of stuck with the basic character for a little bit longer than I would have liked. As a good example, the kind of Wind Overlord's core that grants you kind of a range attack as well as this kind of like super dive and focusing on crit damage was definitely the standout one for me. And once I unlocked that one, it was kind of like we're off to the races. And this was before I even unlocked all the other additional features. But to get, once again, to the point that I could use that required multiple runs of unlocking and again, beating the boss, which when you're at the start can be a bit tricky, especially when you're trying to learn their patterns and when you're limited in terms of your defensive options. And once I got that core kind of up and powered, mixing it with the other secondary cores led to just a really great experience, like just really sinking with me, again, as someone who's played the likes of Ultra Kill and RoboQuest, in terms of multi-jumping, dashing, diving all over and here and there. A lot of the cooler and more importantly, important features are tied to the various cipher unlocks and making overall progress. As an example, one of the upgrades that you get access to allows you to weaken enemies when you punch them. And because a lot of the enemies do have kind of like this health sponginess to them, this is a very important upgrade. And there's a good chance that you will miss this over the course of your first few attempts at playing. And like with some of the other ones that we've played, it's hard until it's not. Once you start, or once you reach that point in terms of the persistent upgrades, that you're able to start making a really solid dent in the game, there's not much else you can throw at you, even with some of the higher difficulty modifiers. And there are some really interesting ones that will throw you for a loop, such as being cursed and having your max health lowered, and that will recover as you win more and more waves. If there is a bit more variety both to the level design and the gunplay, I think Battle Shapers would be a phenomenal take on the genre. But as it sits right now at 1.0, this feels kind of like the Bronze Award when we compare some other ones that we've played. If you're a big fan of roguelike shooters, if you've, done all your gunfire and you've done all your robo-questing and looking for another entry, I would give this one a try. But if you haven't played those yet, I would definitely check them out first to kind of see how far the genre can go. I don't know if Battle Shapers will be receiving more updates following 1.0, as I do really like the concept and there is potential here. But as I said at the beginning, despite all the jumping and dashing that we do, it still comes up a bit short when we compare it to some of the other entries that are out there. With everything said, Battle Shapers was played with a press key provided by the developer. If you want me to look at your game for future streams and showcases as I involve robos, questing, shaping, or gunfire, then please reach out. If you did happen to play this one, let me know what you think about it down in the comments below, and which one was your kind of personal favorite FPS roguelite. With that said, thanks for watching, and I will see everyone in the next video. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.